Hey there, all you creative people. It's Sharon Luska here from My Crafty Greetings, and we are on the hop today with 7 Kids Crafts, and they're offering a discount at their online store right now for 20% off if you use the code VACATION with a capital V. They also offer free shipping over $60 on orders, and I'm just showing you here, I took a dry run with these digis just so that you don't think that online we pull something out of our hat and throw it together. That doesn't always happen. A lot of times there's planning and trials and errors that go into everything that we do, and I had decided today with these gorgeous digi mermaids that I wanted to take and use some highlighters. I wanted some fluorescence in these gals. I thought that would be a lot of fun to use something a little bit different. So I'm kind of using a mishmash of everything here. I've got some Spectrum Noirs, I use some Bics, and these are actually some very, very inexpensive highlighters that I got just from the dollar store. And they're not super great. I'm having to pick off little balls of paper every once in a while, but I think the final effect is pretty fantastic. So I guess the other point here too is you don't need to do tons of blending. Blending is a nice thing to do if you want to do with your alcohol marker creations. You can definitely get into the art of doing that, but if you're not a super duper blender and it's just not your style, don't worry about it. Just whatever you do, as long as you're having fun creating and making things just exactly the way you feel like making them, that's the whole point. Is crafting is meant to be fun and rewarding and help you hone your skills and learn something new and not feel hemmed in by your craft supplies or lack thereof. So you can see where I'm adding the highlighter on her hair and where I'm just using the regular marker. I had tried the highlighter all over her head and it didn't give a lot of differentiation even when I did try to blend over top of it with some of the regular markers. So the best thing that I found was to do some of my kind of highlighting where I wanted the lighter hair to be with my lighter colored markers, and then pick my fluorescent markers as my mid-tone and then just fill it in from there. Now, I haven't worked a lot with digis, and I have to say, I was a little intimidated at first. I didn't think they would be something that I would use, but then I got these mermaid digis, and they are absolutely fantastic. I just fell in love. They're gorgeous. And I started thinking about it. Now that I have used digis, I kind of dig digis. One of the things that's really great, well, I actually made a list. The first thing is, you can make your digis any size you want. You can use your program to size them up and size them down, and heck, if you wanted one for your wall, you could make one for your wall too. When you print them off, they're perfect every time. Sometimes, you know, you stamp and your ink smudges or it just doesn't work out the way you want. This kind of medium, it's perfect every time. It's portable and easy to store. You don't need a lot of space like I do for my stamps. They really take up a lot of room. They're cost effective because they're a lot less expensive than stamps typically are. And I'm going to continue that list. I used highlighters to do the entirety of her tail, minus a couple extra little details with some Spectrum Noirs and some Sharpies that I had. I really wanted this to be a bright, fun mermaid, and I think this did the trick. So anyways, back to the why I love digis. I take my designs and I store them on my iPad, and then I email them when I've got them all set up in a full page printout to my husband to print, and he prints them on his laser printer, which allows me to go ahead and foil. Now, if you have an inkjet printer, you can still go ahead and throw embossing powder if you're quick. Throw embossing powder over that line art, and then you have the choice later on if you do want to foil it. And you don't have to emboss it either if you just want to go ahead and print it. One of the other points too that I wanted to make about digis is they're safe for the environment. So you're saving on packaging, you're saving on waste debris, like the little bits that they have to cut off when they're making it. And the other thing too is you're cutting down on chemicals in the environment. So, you know, they're a really good thing to consider. And I do say, yeah, go ahead and grab your favorite stamps in stamp sets. But when you're filling out some really kind of different and fun types of images, this is a fantastic way to be able to get these images and have them be really useful for you. Now the other thing too is there's no shipping, they're immediate, so you're not waiting wondering where the mailman is. And the other thing too, I never have to wonder who has my stamp set. I always know where it is. So I pulled out some Micron pens here. I always like something with a really fine point to be able to go in and add detail to the eyes, and that's just simply taking a navy blue and going around the irises. And I did have a little issue that these mermaids didn't have noses, so you can see I've kind of fogged one in there, but in the end I decided not to, and you'll see my my testing myself to see if I wanted to. Now the beautiful part about these designs is you can leave the eyes exactly the way they are, or if you want to make them even more dramatic, you can go ahead and add some extra lining around them, which just makes her look a little more glamorous. She looks like some sort of club mermaid. And you know, I also drew her mouth out a little bit bigger too. I wanted her to have kind of I don't know, a smirky smile, I guess. And I think that that worked out well for me. I'm still adding some highlights in here. You can see I didn't do a lot of blending to blend these highlights out. I left them intensely because with hair that big, you would have a pretty big highlight both on your cheeks and underneath the banks of your hair. And you can see I was testing making some nostrils there and ended up deciding against it, especially when I've gone this far. Now I went ahead and added some Spectrum Noir sparkle pen and highlighted those little pearls in her hair, as well as some white slim liner, or I don't know what is, white gel pen, just to bring out as much detail in her hair and to add a little bit of highlight to the scales as well. So I think that she turned out pretty well. Oh, there's also shimmer on her eyelids if you notice that. So I gave it all a little wiggle so you could see. Now I went ahead and got out ovals that I had, and originally I was just going to put a frame, and then it just kind of started yelling to me, shaker, shaker, shaker. So I'm taking these frame layers. I've got a gold one here, and I put that on my what is that stuff? Acetate. And then I have a plain paper one that is a little bit smaller, and I'm going to offset it so that it's got a tiny bit of gold to it. And then I also have this gold foiled treasure chest that she's going to sit on. And after brushing it with some ink, I went ahead and also took some, this was distress ink, and I then took some sapphire and went ahead and wet it and painted in some extra detail, so just so that it would look cute when she's sitting on it. I also ended up adding a little bit of Spectrum Noir shimmer to it, the shimmer pen. I'm just going to say quick while I have a second that this is a hop, and don't forget the hashtag in the title is going to take you to the rest of my Team Tiny team, the rest of the hoppers, and all the great videos that they have. I took some thin foam tape that I had here, and I'm running it around in one circle, and I didn't take the outside protective layer off for a reason. I just let it be a little bit lumpy and bumpy, but as soon as I release that, the lumps and bumps end up working themselves out. So there's a reason, or there's a method to my madness, and I had ink blended this background and then splattered it with some water in an oval mask cut from the same die set. I'm taking this protective, what is that, protective film stuff or protective paper off the back, and you can see this is my sneaky way of making my shaker cards and being able to match up the front while getting all of my stuff in and not having it stick to anything. I think it's probably one of the easier ways to do this, and I would encourage everyone to give this a try. Just bend it back a little bit especially if it's a square, leave a corner loose, you know, it'll make your life so much easier. So I had to go ahead and glue the treasure chest to her butt. And I let that dry for a second, and then I added some ATG. I thought that would be the cleanest, tidiest way to stick it to that clear paper acetator stuff. So anyways, I got her all stuck down there, and I loved the card. I added Bubbles of Fun, and that was a foiled sentiment as well. And once I decided that it needed a little bit more, I added some Spectrum Noir dots, and then also added some appropriate shiny sequins. She's a little bit of a princess, isn't she? So, my kind of gal. Anyways, oh, and the other thing too, I didn't say, that paper that I used was Neenah Solar White 80 pound, and this is again Neenah Solar White 80 pound, and I got it from Office Max, and it's the big huge sheets, but I just cut it down because it makes life easy for me. Now this is a Jane Davenport in the Brights set, and I'm going to watercolor on this paper. And you know, if you have watercolors, or if you haven't watercolored using your inks on paper that you have because you felt like you needed to use watercolor paper, that's bahooey. You can go ahead and watercolor on any paper you want. All you have to respect is that it will change the finished product. And if you're looking for something smooth and very arty looking, you want something that's real to life, maybe, you know, you might want to use watercolor paper. But I'm really going to encourage you, print your digis off on your Neenah paper and go ahead and enjoy them. Go ahead and paint them up with your watercolors, paint them up with your inks, because I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel like using my markers takes me a little bit more time, and sometimes it feels like it's a little bit more work, and it all depends on what's comfortable for you. I love mixing up a bunch of colors and just putting them on my paper, not worrying about how specifically they look. You know, if you look at different cartoons, different anime, not everybody blends everything in perfectly. Sometimes it is the suggestion of a shadow, not some overworked, you know, super shadow. And that's not to say that those aren't beautiful too, but there's been a lot of, you know, a lot of focus on shading and highlights and this, that, and the other thing. And I know I have friends who don't use their markers because they just feel like it's too much to learn and they're not going to be good enough at it. And I'm going to say it's exactly the same with those watercolors that you have. Bust them out, use them on your regular paper, give them a try on even some of your pattern paper. Some of the pattern paper will actually take the color from watercolor, no problem. All you can do is try, and that's the main theory I have in my craft room, is everything is open to a try. If I want to mix one thing with something else, or I want to apply a type of product to another surface, I'm going to try it. And if it goes and makes a mess, there's always a garbage can that's hungry and waiting to have a snack. And you know what? If you get some wild discovery and you go, hey, that turned out kind of amazing, then woohoo for you. You've got some new technique that you can thoroughly enjoy, and, you know, fool a few of your friends when they're looking at your cards going, how did you do that? Okay, let's dish about 7 Kids Crafts. This is the store that was wonderful enough to support Team Tiny and let us have these fabulous digis, and they are available in the store and they're listed below if you decide that you want to add these to your collection. And for mermaid images, oh my gosh, I don't know why you wouldn't. So, but with that 20% off code, Kelly has got such a fabulous selection of items in her store. And I'm not an American online shopper, so I don't really know, but I just feel like her prices are really competitive, like really good prices. And she has a lot in her store. She's got Penny Black and Ranger Alcohol inks, Stamperia, which is my favorite. I'm going to put a card up above so that you can go ahead and check out my Stamperia stuff. She's got Catherine Pooler, especially the inks and re-inkers. Oh my gosh, I want some of those. She's got Versifying Claire and Brusho, and You know, for stamps, she's got Doodlebug, Mama Elephant, and MFT. And if you're not super into the cutesy stuff, she's got Lavinia. She's got Lindy's Stamp Gang stuff, and very cool fancy chipboard elements that I'd really like to try. And the other thing too is, you probably see in my videos, I use a fair number of Creative Expressions kind of mini dies. Super duper cost effective. She's got those in, and I bet you bucks if everybody was to check them out and possibly buy them, she'll probably bring in a lot more. So I have some Stampin' Up. I don't even know what this stuff is specifically. It's kind of their version of glossy accents. I had to replace the needle, so you have to excuse it. It's very long and also very sharp, but I figured, oh well, I'll use the sharp end to my advantage. I covered my entire image over top of everything, and this is going to create a resist. And I'm taking my cheapo dollar store makeup brushes, and I'm going to put ink all over the front of my design. Now you'll also notice, hey, it looks like I've got an extra panel there. Well, I do. It's my main design panel is temporarily taped over top of a 5x7 panel, and I'm doing this on purpose, and you'll see in a little bit why. Now I wanted to highlight the edges of this with chipped sapphire distress ink, and this is going to really make it pop. And I also noticed every time I go in ink blend, I bloody love the design on the paper, and I'm gonna have to make a card out of it. So I flicked lots of water over this because it is a underwater scene, nice and bubbly. And I'm just gonna take that damp paper towel and wipe off my resist here. And so this is what I was doing. Two ways you choose. You don't have to be super fussy about the ink blending either. Doesn't need to be perfect. I decided to trick the eye and add a little bit of surprise to it, to flip it around. I added You're the Pearl of the Sea and a few pearls. There's a little bit of glitter paper underneath the layers there. Thank you so much for joining me. If you haven't subscribed, I sure would love it if you would. Thumbs up, comment. Thank you, thank you, thank you for supporting me. Take care. Bye.